Good, everybody. New Never You BGM back in this thing. So we have the full reveal of Opus 24 Hidden Legends, and today we're gonna go through these cards and see what's what. And based off how these cards look, how I feel about these cards, I may make a video about cards you may want to pick up before or after the set drops, just to help your chances with your game plan. So obviously Ifrit is the first one. He is also the box topper. He has haste. He is an icon, so he can be primed into by Clive when he enters the field, deals damage to your opponent, or Clive primes into Ifrit. Choose 1/4 your opponent controls, deal it 10k, and then Spit Flare, which is his special ability. He can either pitch a copy of Ifrit 16, and if he's primed, he can pitch a copy of Clive as well to deal a forward 10,000 damage. 10,000 damage is kind of the max base of a card at the moment. You got stuff like Buenavelza, Warrior of Light, the 4-color, and a few other cards. But Ifrit's pretty good. He's a 7, so you can play him by itself. It's easier to prime into him. But yeah, I mean, worst comes to worst, I mean, he still does 10k when he hits the field. So either way, I think he's pretty solid. Warrior of Light, EX burst. When Warrior of Light enters the field, choose 1 forward, deal it 5k. If you have a crystal, deal it 8k instead. This is a backup, so this is pretty good, especially if you're going for a crystal build. The fact that it is it's like just damage on entry and the EX burst damage, and if you have crystals, you know, you can just have that, and you can either like also build like a crystal Warrior of Light build, because this is a Warrior Light job, so he still has that credential if you're building like a Refia control or whatever, and you don't want to use the forward Warrior Light, or you don't have it, whatever the reason, or you just want to try something new. So this card's pretty solid. I like it, and I'm pretty sure it'll see play at some point. Scion is a, well, you can see what it is. When he enters the field, you may play 1 category 6 forward of cost 3 or less from your hand onto the field. Put Cyan into the break zone. Choose 1 ability that is choosing only 1 category 6 forward you control. Cancel its effect. Bushido Tempest is special, and all it requires is him and to duel him. Choose 1 forward, deal it 1,000 for each card in your break zone. That's pretty good, especially because you can essentially Bushido Tempest into using his action ability by putting him into the break zone. You can special and then put him into the break zone, and then also protect either like himself, I guess, or another Final Fantasy 6 forward. And then when he enters the field, you can also play 1 that's 3 or less as well. So this card's pretty good all around. And I mean, that if you're doing like the chaos build or just anything late game, and you have minimum 10 cards in your break zone, and he's gonna do 10k to a forward, and there's ways to reactivate him. And I mean, he's a samurai, so there's cards that reactivate samurais when they do their thing. So this card, I think, is going to be used outside of 6, but obviously it's built to help facilitate 6. And so yeah, I think Sion's gonna be that guy, that man. Deadly Nightshade. It's a tomato. When 1 or more forwards you control attack, you can put Deadly Nightshade into the break zone. When Deadly Nightshade is put from the field to the break zone, choose 1 forward, deal it 7k. So this is good with Witch of the Fens, and it's also good by itself, because not only is it a party attacker type thingy, it is it works with Witch of the Fens, because Witch of the Fens can send that to reduce something by 7k, and then he, the tomato, deals 7k to something else. So it's like a 2-for-1, and he's also cost 1, and I mean that's pretty solid. I mean, even if they get rid of it and wipe the field, as long as it goes to the break zone, he's gonna do 7k to something. And it doesn't even have to be an opponent's forward. It just has to be a forward. So that could be a double-edged sword. So either way, it is a pretty good tomato, and it has a full art, a tomato full art. Imagine that. Look at him, looking all menacing. Clive. So is this gonna have? Okay, so there is no full art for this one outside of the signed one, it appears. But Clive is a dominant. He has haste, and it takes a fire, CP, and whatever else CP to prime into Ifrit 16. And then if he's on the field, all the other icons and dominants other than himself gain 1,000 power. When he deals damage to your opponent, you discard your whole hand and then draw 2 cards. So if he attacks, deals damage, you have no hand, you discard your alleged no hand and draw 2 cards. So in that regard, it's good, because if he's the last card you play, turn 1, your opponent has no field to protect themselves, no Amaterasu, no things like that. He replaces himself with the CP cost by drawing 2 cards, and if there's certain decks that are like haste decks, you can potentially push for 3 to 4, maybe even 5 points of damage turn 1 just based off of him. So that's pretty good. And then the following turn, you can just prime into Ifrit and then deal something 10k. And then if you have another Clive or Ifrit in your hand outside of that, you can do it again and then attack and deal something else 10k if they can't block it. So Ifrit Clive combo is gonna be pretty solid, and I think it's gonna see a pretty substantial amount of combos. And then here's another Clive to facilitate that S ability once he's primed into Ifrit. If any job, icon, or dominant you own are removed from the game, Clive gains 4k power and brave. That is a permanent gain, as long as there's something that is removed. And then you can dull Clive, put him into the break zone, choose 1 forward, deal it 5k. This is a 5k forward. You can obviously see that by looking at it. Obviously not as powerful as the 4 CP one, but he has his places in certain things, because he can become a 9k and he can have brave, so he could attack if he has the brave 4k, and then you can put him into the break to do another 5k, and then pretty much just get him off the field if you want to play the bigger Clive. So Black Mage, standard unit. You can put Black Mage into the break zone, choose 1 forward, deal it 5k. You can only use this ability if a fire forward has entered the field this turn. So pretty standard Black Mage things, backup. Yeah, I'm sure this will see some form of play, especially if you're doing ping damage. You could even play this in the Black Waltz deck, because you can play I think it's Black Waltz 2, and that deals damage when you can get rid of Black Mage to deal damage, and then you can discard cards, Black Mages, to pretty much mop up the field, because I think Black Waltz deals 5k as well. And then if you discard a Black Waltz card, depending on, I think they all do 3k once they're discarded. So this combo nets you like 5-5-3, so you can even up the field pretty easily with that, if that's something you want to do. But if not, I mean, there's still ways to facilitate this card, because it kind of replaces itself if you need to get more room on the back end field for backups. Tepig the Salamander from 12RW. I don't know what RW means, but anyway, it's an EX burst. Choose 1 forward and 1 other forward, deal the former 7k. If you control 5 or more backups, deal the latter 5. Pretty standard. It's an EX burst, so it could come when you least expect it and probably need it the most. It is pretty decent. Deals with Refia, deals with a few other things at 7K. And then if there's something else that you need to mop up the floor with, does another little 5K after that to something else. But yeah, you have to have 5 backups for it, but let's be honest, that's not really difficult to do in this day and age. There's cards that just play backups for free, and then there's cards that search backups that can play themselves for free. So I don't see him not being able to reach his full potential, but yeah, it's pretty decent. Joshua. Somehow I knew he was going to be a 1 CP and the weakest card of all of them, but it takes 3 fire to prime into Phoenix. When Joshua enters the field, choose 1 job icon or 1 dominant in your break zone. Put it at the top. Put them at the bottom of its owner's deck. That's pretty good. That is actually pretty good. And for him to be a 1 CP, he may be the weakest as far as stat line, but that ability is pretty solid, because if you if you have to pitch a dominant or if you have to pitch an icon, because you can only prime from the deck. So the fact that you can use him to reset that prime ability and potentially get another icon and dominant set up, then that's pretty solid. So that he is essentially acting as a Phoenix, bringing something back from death, bringing it back to life. So yeah, I have a feeling next set they're gonna give us his adult version, or at least his older teenage version, and I'm sure that version is gonna be a stronger incarnation of himself, and I'm sure that there'll be stronger versions or weaker versions of the dominant or the icons as well. What is this? Setia. These cards are pretty cool. She is a warrior of the crystal. You can pay 2 random CP and 1 crystal instead of paying the CP cost to cast her. When Setia enters the field, choose 1 forward, deal it 4K for each warrior of the crystal forward you control. So this is pretty good. Goes with the line of fire, deal damage, get rid of stuff. Pretty standard stuff. And I think there's 6, maybe 7 warriors of the crystal. So this might be a pretty cool multicolored deck. So I'm interested to see how that turns out. I'm gonna get this right. Tatsagugu. I probably screwed that up. Anyway, type 0 card, commanding officer. When he enters the field, due to your cast, you may search for up to 2 forwards of cost 2 or less and play them onto the field. When a forward other than him enters the field, choose 1 forward your opponent controls, deal it 2K. That's pretty good. That's actually I really like that. Not only because his search ability triggers his deal damage, because if you get 2, you're doing 4K to something. So that kind of replaces 4 of his 9 CP costs, and I'm pretty sure there'll be cards to facilitate to make him cost less in the future if not. But I think that's a pretty solid card, and all around the effect's pretty good. He's 9K, so he's a little more difficult to deal with as far as damage wise. If he had Brave, that'd be pretty solid, but he doesn't, so no point in crying over spilled milk. But I think he's pretty good. Ooh, a human. Standard unit. When human enters the field, draw 1 card. When human enters the field, choose 1 forward. If you control 4 more fire backups, deal it 7K. Human's pretty good. He's a backup. So, there's not really much else to say about that. It's a Final Fantasy Tactics card, so, he's pretty solid. If he's the 4th backup, you deal 7K to something, and then you draw a card. Not much you can say about that. Neon, she has a full art. If you want to see it, I'll go ahead and do that. She's a 5 dropper. When Neon enters the field, choose one forward your opponent controls, deal it 5k damage, gain a crystal. You can pay 1 fire CP and a crystal. Choose one forward, deal it 5k damage. So essentially, play her, deal something 5k, get a crystal, use that crystal, pay another fire, deal something another 5k. So essentially 10k or 2 5ks. And then if you have certain cards set up, that could be 7k, 8k, 9k per burst. So she is, I think she's probably the best of all of the Stranger of Paradise cards outside of Jack and the Emperor, but I haven't read some of them, so my opinion could change on that. Ooh, Bahamut is a fully, yeah, I got to get me one of these. He is a summon, a 5-cost summon, fire. Choose one of the 2 following actions. Choose one forward, deal it 20 stacks. That's a lot of damage. Or deal 10,000 to all forwards your opponent controls, and then remove the top card of your deck from the game until there are only 3 cards left. That second one, I could see how that could work, but I could also see how it couldn't work. Because EX bursts are just such a hindrance in this game, where you think you're on damage 4 and you got 3 attackers, but one Leviathan, one Brunhilde, one just random EX burst could just set your game plan back horribly. And if you play this card wrong, yeah, you may wipe the field, but if there's any inkling that they have a chance to do that, then I don't know. It's like Russian roulette. I mean, both effects are good, don't get me wrong. It's just they both have their place in time, and I would not run this card because of the second ability. I just would be a little cautious on how I use the second one, but I like it. Bahamut's one of my favorite summons in 10, probably in the entire cosmos of Final Fantasy, so I'll probably figure out a way to run it. Then we have another Bahamut from Stranger of Paradise. This one's an EX burst, a 9-drop and a 9k. When he enters the field, choose one for your opponent controls, deal it 8k damage. When a forward your opponent controls damaged by Bahamut, this Bahamut is put from the field into the break zone. On the same turn, Bahamut deals your opponent damage. So this works both ways, as if it attacks and they block, and that forward goes to the break zone in the same turn, deal opponent damage. When he enters the field, choose a forward, deal it 8k. If it goes to the break zone, deal them opponent damage. So he is pretty lethal, and he's like scary if he's out and they have to block it. Like if they're long damage, and it's like one of those situations where you attack with him and either they take the damage or they lose a 4 and take the damage. So it's just one of those situations where he could be that guy. And also his name is just standard Bahamut, so those Bahamuts that have S abilities, you could just use this for that as well if you don't want to play this for the sake of playing it, because it is kind of high. But either way, I mean, there's ways to reduce it because his name is Bahamut. So you have like the Caius thing that reduce it by 5 and it'll be 4, so that's pretty gross. Phoenix 16, the icon. When Phoenix attacks or when Joshua primes into Phoenix 16, choose one fire forward of cost 2 or less in your break zone, play it onto the field. Okay, now that makes Joshua that much more powerful, because if you don't prime into Phoenix, you could play this Phoenix, have it attack, bring back Joshua, and then Joshua could put something that you were using outside of Joshua or Phoenix to the bottom of the deck, and you can get ready to prime into something later on in the duel, like Bahamut, Ifrit, Shiva, depending on how you're playing it, Odin, Benedicta, you know, all those. So that is actually pretty good. That's a lot better than I expected it to be. Firion, the forward 3 CP fire. At the beginning of the attack phase during each of your turns, select one of the two following actions. Either he gains first strike to the end of the turn or brave to the end of the turn. He is a warrior slash rebel, and Tyvis is that warrior facilitator, and I think they are starting to give rebels their shot in the sun. So I'm interested to see if this one sees any play, or if he's just used for S abilities for Furion down the line, or I mean, it's still an 8K. The problem with a lot of these 8Ks that are 3 or less is that Cloud is in the limit break, and Cloud just makes so much trouble for so many things, because it doesn't matter how strong it is. If it's a 3 CP or less, Cloud's just gonna be like, nah fam, we can go ahead and get that out the way. So I'm interested to see how that goes. Joseph, 5 CP fire backup, Final Fantasy 2. When he enters the field, you may search for one rebel or cost 2 or less, play it onto the field. Duel Joseph and put him into the break zone for the cost. Choose one job rebel. It gains 2k power to the end of the turn. He has a full art as well. I don't know how I feel about this, because I guess I'd have to see if there's any rebels that are 2 or less that actually can benefit from being played by this gentleman. Not saying that there won't be or they can't. I just don't know offhand, but it is, if there are, it is pretty good, and I hate that he has to get rid of himself to give them 2k, but he is also a monk, so we will see as we dive down into this set. Umaro, or Umaro, however you want to say it. It's Final Fantasy 6 backup, ice. Pay 2 ICP and 1 random. Discard Umaro. Choose 1 duel forward. Break it. You can only use this ability during your turn, and if Umaro is in your hand. That is pretty good, actually. It kind of works like that Sephiroth. Only difference is you discard it from your hand, and Sephiroth kind of brings himself back if you want to pay the cost for it. But this is pretty good, especially if there's something that has attacked and you have no way of dealing with it in your current state. Obviously you have to get rid of it on your turn, because you can only use this if this is in your hand and it's your turn. So I'm sure this will find some uses. I'm sure 6 will come up with some crazy combos, because 6 is pretty deadly as it is. I think you pronounce this as Olmia. It is a backup. When, I believe that's a she, enters the field, choose one character, duel and freeze it. If you control a Final Fantasy 11 forward, your opponent also discards 1 card. So Shantoto is an 11. Preesh is an 11. There's a few other cards that I think people use that are 11s, but this is pretty good, because not only does it duel and freeze a character, so potentially causing 1 less CP generator or attacker or blocker, it can also make your opponent discard a card as well, just by having a 11 forward on the field. So I think this card's fantastic. Kurasame, from the art of I think that's his chapter 5 book from the manga. He is a 4-drop ice. When Kurasame enters the field, choose up to the same number of characters your opponent controls as the backups you control. Freeze them. When he attacks, if your opponent controls 4 or more duel characters, draw 1 card. So he is a powered down version of his box topper, which is kind of weird, because based off the art, this is like him at his late prime, and that box topper is like him right as he became the Ice Reaper. So I would prefer the other one over this one, but I mean, if they have dual stuff already, he doesn't really like commit much, and this one's 4 compared to the other one being 7, and with the Tomberry on the card, I mean, like, you can't really deny the the lethalness of it. And when he attacks, if they control 4 more dual characters, you draw a card. So that's constant draw recursion, and it kind of makes them being your opponent wary of how they duel cards. And so I like it. I like it. I could see it being like a 2/2 or a 3/1 or a 2/1 of the other Kurosame in this one. So I look forward to testing that, see what's gonna go on. Go-Go. When a Final Fantasy VI forward other than Go-Go you control is put from the field into the break zone, add it to your hand. This effect will trigger only once per turn. That's insane. That is insane. A loopable. Wow. That is good for 6. Man. And that's once per turn. So that's essentially you just constantly. Oh man. So you could attack with something and basically suicide it on purpose. Kamikaze, I guess, would be the best word. And get it back anyway. And so yeah, that card's good. That card's insane. G Deleter, ice backup. When G Deleter enters the field, draw 1 card. It's pretty solid. When it also enters the field, choose 1 character. If you control 4 more backups, ice backups, dull it and freeze it. So this is kind of just like I forgot the other one we just read in Fire, but this is kind of the same like that. So these I assume would be the elemental backups like the standard units we got last time. Shiva did it. Okay, make sure it didn't skip anything. When Shiva 16 enters the field, or when Jill primes into Shiva, choose up to 2 dual forwards, break them. At the end of each of your turns, if 2 or more forwards your opponent control were put into the break zone, this turn your opponent discards 1 card. I was hoping Shiva did more than that. It's still pretty strong, but it's also contingent on something going to the break zone that they discard a card. It's at the end of the turn, so it does help because they can't respond to it. So as long as you can duel 2 cards, 2 forwards, and get them out the way, then sure, that helps. I think that takes a lot of pre-planning, but I can see where she'd be useful. And I like the art. I like Shiva. Shiva's also a fan favorite summon, so I'm interested to see how this goes. Now this Genesis is a banger as far as the art goes. Kind of reminds me of Light Yagami with the apple and the smug look, but he is a soldier, 5 CP legend ice forward. When he or a soldier enters your field, select one of the following 3 actions. Your opponent discards 1 card, choose up to 2 characters, duel them, and freeze them. And then during this turn, the cost required to cast your next soldier is reduced by 3. It cannot become 0. So yeah, you can make a soldier deck. If they release more soldiers, which I'm sure they will with the release of the Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis mobile game. So I'm sure that if this Genesis isn't banging or popping right now, I'm sure in the future he will be, for sure. Zalera, the Death Seraph. I think I've read this one, but that full art. These 2, I've always liked the art of these 2 ever since I played 12. But so 4 CP ice for summon. You can only cast Zalera, the Death Seraph during your turn. Select one of the 2 following actions. Your opponent selects 1 forward of cost 5 or more they control, put into the break zone they discard. Your opponent selects 1 forward of 4 or less they control, put into the break zone they discard a card. So yeah, gets rid of a card, makes them discard, so it pays for himself. I like this. I really do like this, and I know there's ways to play this for free, so I can't wait to get into this. Ice and lightning are my elements, so yeah, I'm excited. Shantoto with the trombone, 4 costs forward. The cost to cast your summons is reduced by 1. They cannot become 0, so that goes with the card we just read. Um, excuse me. Dull her, choose one forward, dull and freeze it. You can only use this ability if you have cast a summon this turn. So this is pretty solid. Pretty standard Shantoto things. Obviously there's different Shantotos for different situations, but I like this one. I'll probably be using this for certain decks. This works good with the Terra deck because Terra plays a lot of summons in that deck, so I am interested. Jill, 3 costs, ice forward. If you control Clive or Torgal, the cost to cast her is reduced by 2, making her 1. And then to prime into Shiva is 1 ICP and then 2 random other ones. When she enters the field, choose 1 for your opponent controls, dull it, and freeze it. So this helps with her priming. So that's 1 less you have to worry about. So that I mean, that helps, obviously, but still. Hopefully we'll get a more powerful Shiva and Jill and all these other things, and we'll get like less powerful ones. But I'm not one to say cards suck because things change and then situations change. So Squall with the triangle. When Squall enters the field, he's a 3 CP forward. When he enters the field or is put from the field into the break zone, choose 1 dual forward, deal it 5k. Special is Rough Divide. By discarding a copy of himself to the end of the turn, he gets first strike and 1,000. I mean, it's Squall, so this is decent, and more Squall names. So if there's ever better S abilities in the future or in the past, you can operate in that function. So I think that this Squall has its place, and I'm interested to see, where it goes. Terra with the, I think that's a liar, if not a harp. She's an EX burst, and when she enters the field, choose 1 summon in your break zone, add it to your hand. Just typical Terra things, more names. Torgal is an ice backup. The cost required to cast your icon forwards or dominance can be paid with any element. The priming cost of the forwards you control can be paid with CP of any element. Torgal's, gosh, Torgal's busted. Torgal is he's the Sid. He's the Sid, I can't remember his name from 8. He's the Sid of that one. He's the Riku of 10. Torgal is insane, fam. Like, Torgal is that wolf. That card, oh man. So you can, as long as you can get Torgal out, you can play any dominant, any icon, in any deck. That's wild. That's insane. Torgal's super good. Pisco Daemon, Ice Monster. When 1 or more forwards you control attack, you may put him into the break zone. When he's put into the field, from the field to the break zone, choose up to 2 characters, dull and freeze them. That facilitates for Shiva. That facilitates for a couple other things. It's pretty good. So I think all of these that do this have their little niche abilities, so I think they're all gonna be pretty good. Another Buenavelza card. He is a 10k 7 cost legend of ice. When he enters the field, you may put any number of forwards and or monsters you control into the break zone. When you do so, your opponent selects 1 forward they control for each character you put into the break zone. By this effect, select as many as possible, put them into the break zone. Your opponent discards 1 card for each character you put into the break. So this is a twisted reality version of Chaos and Arc. You don't get to steal anything, but let's say they got a field full of stuff, and you got these monsters like the Pisco Daemon we just read. You can just get rid of those and just make their effects go off, and then they have to choose, your opponent has to choose what they send and then they discard for each amount that they send. So this card could be super deadly, and the fact that it's a 13 card, 13 already has it to where it can go insane in a couple turns. And then if you're staring down this and I make you get rid of your whole hand and part of your field, this could be a lot more deadlier than it looks. And I don't know if it deserves a full art. I don't even know what really requires things to get a full art, but I like this card, and 7 is a lot, but all his cards, I think there's only 2 Puenavels, is this and the 10, but I like it. I like it a lot. Velis, Warrior of the Crystal, Ice. You can pay 1 CP of whatever and 1 crystal instead of paying the standard cost. He has an EX burst, and when he or another Warrior of the Crystal enters the field, choose 1 for your opponent controls, dull and freeze it. I was thinking he was gonna discard when I saw him on the preview page, but I like it. I like it a lot. Mateus, EX burst. Select one of the 2 following actions. Choose 1 dull forward of cost 3 or less. Break it. Choose 1 forward. Dull it. Draw a card. Pretty good, and works really well on EX burst. So I like this card, and I'm pretty sure that I'll find some way to use it. New Mao. Put New Mao into the break zone. Choose 1 for your opponent controls. Dull and freeze it. You can only use this ability if an ice forward enters the field this turn. Yeah, it's standard tactics backup. So Ash, EX burst, backup. When she enters the field, choose 1 forward to cost 5 or more. Put it on the top of your owner's. Put it on the top of its owner's deck. Put Ash into the break zone by dulling her for the cost. Choose 1 forward, activate it, and it gains 1,000 power until the end of the turn. Not really sure what this is used for, unless you got something like Leviathan and something else, and you want to send something back to the top of your deck so Leviathan does stuff. It's the only thing I can think off the top of my head. I'm sure there's theory craft somewhere that puts that idea to shame, but you know, just giving you my opinions. Val 4 is a 1 CP summon of wind. You can only cast it during your main phase. If you cast her, or cast it, I guess, you may pay any amount as an extra cost. Reveal the top 7 cards of your deck and play 1 wind character of cost equal to whatever you paid or less, and then shuffle the other cards revealed and then return them to the bottom of your deck. This is good. Especially this is one of those cards where you have to know the entirety of your deck, what it's capable of, what it can do, and everything of that nature. So I'm interested to see how this works, because there's certain cards coming up, I believe, that could help this facilitate a whole bunch of combos. So yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes. Vaughn, when he enters the field, he is a forward of 9k. Enters the field or attacks, choose up to 2 backups, activate them. Araga Blade is a special, and it takes 1 of him, 1 win CP, and 1 whatever. Choose 1 forward, deal it 9k. That's not too bad. I mean, he activates things when he enters the field or attacks, so he does a lot more than some of his other iterations. So I think he'll replace some other iterations. Vieira, she is a win backup. She is put her into the break zone, choose up to 2 backups, activate them. You can only use this if a win forward is entered. So another one of those standard thingies. Onion Knight, 8k 3 CP win forward. Warp 1 requires 1 win CP, and then 1 win CP as a cost. Remove Onion Knight from the game. If you do so, place 2 warp counters on Onion Knight, and then at damage 3 he gets 1,000. He has a Warrior Light, so that helps. And I mean, he can block, use that, and then dip out and, you know, the attack fizzles from your opponent. So I think that's pretty good. Garuda 16, 5 drop 9k forward. When Garuda enters the field or when Benedicta primes into Garuda, activate all backups you control. When she attacks, choose up to 2 forwards your opponent controls, return them to their hand. Oof. Ooh. That's nasty. Ooh. I mean, you have to get to the point where she can attack, but if she does, I mean, that's insane. And then she facilitates all your backup plays. So if you got 5 backups down, she's bringing them back up. And, you know, she can essentially get played for a low cost. Next we have Thief. When Thief enters the field, draw 1 card. When Thief enters the field, choose 1 forward. If you control 4 more backups, this forward cannot be blocked. This is good for a card like Estinian that can attack multiple times in that turn. So I definitely see this card being played, and Win has no shortage of cards allowing things not to be blocked. So I don't see why this one wouldn't be played. But yeah, Zidane. He is a forward. When Zidane enters the field or is put from the field into the break zone, choose 1 character in your opponent's break zone, remove it from the game. During this game, you can cast it as though you owned it at any time you could normally cast it. At damage 5, the backups you control produce any CP of any element, or produce CP of any element. It's pretty cool. I like his earlier version better, that essentially did the same thing, but if you casted I think 3 cards before he was played or as he was played, he got haste, and then on entry you steal a card, and then every time you attack you steal a card. But he's a thief, so I mean, he does what Zidane does, and more Zidanes just makes it to the point eventually there's going to be a Zidane deck, thief deck if you will. So not knocking it. I don't know how to say that, so I'm gonna assume it's June or Jayun. She's a 8k forward. You may pay 2 of any CP, 1 crystal, to cast her. She cannot be chosen by your opponent's abilities. The art's nice. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. Okay. Alright. Leech Bat. As a monster, when 1 or more forwards you control attack, you may put into the break zone. When this card is sent from the field to the break zone, your opponent reveals their hand. You may select 1 card from their hand. If you do so, your opponent discards it and they draw a card. It's alright. Hand knowledge is always good, especially if you're going first or second or whatever, and you need a little more knowledge to figure out how you're gonna plan everything. So I think it's nice. Sophia, I like the art of this card. It looks eerily like a real woman, so kudos to, was it Matsuda, for that art. When Sophia enters the field, you may pay 1 crystal. When you do so, select 1 of the 2 following actions. Choose a forward if it costs 5 or more, break it. Choose 1 monster, break it. I think that that monster break is going to be more effective than any of these other ones. So excuse me. But she's a black maid, so she works with black waltz if you wanted to throw her in there for whatever reason. Titus is a 9k forward in wind. He has a 5 warp that requires you to pay nothing. When a warp counter is removed from any player's card other than Titus, remove 1 warp counter from Titus. This effect will trigger only if Titus is removed from the game and if a warp counter is placed on Titus. The forwards with warp you control gain haste, and this forward cannot be chosen by your opponent's summons. So it's good to protect the warp cards, and it gives them haste. Outside of that, I'd have to tinker with it to see what else I really thought, but off first glance, I like the art, but I guess this is to make it to where whenever cards are being warped in the future or the ones that we have in the past, that it gives them some sort of protection. So, and haste, by the way. So I think that's pretty nice. No has a full art. When No enters the field, choose one forward your opponent controls, deal it 2k. If you have cast 3 or more cards this turn, deal it damage equal to No's power instead, and then at damage 3, No gets 2k, so it'll be essentially a 7k drain. If not, 2k. But you could run 3 of these possibly, because it's a 2-drop. So I think this is I think this would be all right, especially at damage 3. I think it'll be fun. Bart's is a backup. He has a. I don't want to make myself look stupid, but I don't remember what that is. Not a. Whatever. When he enters the field, choose up to 2 backups. If any cards you own are removed from the game, activate them. He's a warrior light, so that that's cool. And then, I mean, he's a pretty cheap one, and then he recovers 2. So if there's something that you have removed, you can play it. Cast 1, knock up 2 backups. If you got Everay, if you got Atomos, that helps facilitate the storm count. So I think Bart is pretty good as long as you got something that's removed from play. Benedicta, 8k 3-drop. Pretty nice art. She has first strike, and then it takes 1 to prime into Garuda, which is pretty nice. 1 wind. And then when Benedicta enters the field, Benedicta gains haste until the end of the turn. I don't like that's an auto ability, because that sucks. But I mean, if she primes into Garuda at damage 3 would get haste and first strike, but that haste would last until the end of the turn. But that gives you the room that you need to send 2 forwards back, as long as you can keep Benedicta alive and Garuda alive when she attacks. So Belgamine, she cannot be chosen by summons. During each turn, when you cast the second summon you've cast, choose up to 2 forwards, deal them 4k. During each turn, when you cast the third summon you've cast, choose up to 3 forwards your opponent controls. Your opponent puts them at the bottom of their owner's deck in any order. So if they stole something from you, it goes back to you. But I see a summon deck coming along, more so than I did before. And yeah, it's gonna be real interesting, because that's a powerful card. As long as you can keep her from getting targeted or affected by your opponent's abilities, then you're EA Sports. You're in the game. Minwoo, the category 2 forwards other than Minwoo you control gain. This forward cannot be chosen by your opponent's abilities. When Minwoo enters the field, choose 1 category forward other than Minwoo in your break zone. If its cost is equal to or less than the number of backups you control, then play it onto the field. Okay. So Joseph is a 5, I believe. So Minwoo can play Joseph for free. Joseph can play something else for free. So I see, okay, it makes sense. So essentially you're supposed to possibly play these together. But if not, I mean, not, okay, it makes sense. That makes Joseph a little bit better. And then Minwoo by itself also protects category 2 forwards a little bit. So I think Minwoo's pretty solid. Wing Wraith is an EX burst. Choose 1 opponent's forward, deal it 3k, and then search for another Wing Wraith and add to your hand. So, well, this makes Belgamine online. Play Wing Wraith, search Wing Wraith, search another one after you play that one, and then that's 3, 4k, 4k, 3k, 3k, and then bounce 3. So that is one way to do it. I'm pretty sure that's why they designed it like that. Ash, not to be confused with Ash Ketchum. He has Brave. And when he has chosen my opponent's summoner ability, gain a crystal. When he blocks or is blocked, gain 3k until the end of the turn. I do not see this being played whatsoever, but I could be wrong, because it is a monk, and so I'm just interested to see if anybody comes up with a pretty cool strategy. But it's a mod to the art, and I'll collect it. I just don't know what I'd put it in at the moment. Kusith, EX Burst. Select one of the two following actions. Choose one backup you control, remove it from the game, draw a card. Choose one for your opponent controls. If it deals damage to you or your opponent this turn, if it deals damage to you or a forward this turn, the damage becomes 0. It's a good way to stop chaos when they use a special. And I'm pretty sure most people wouldn't expect it, but experienced players would probably expect things like this. But I mean, if they use the special, they've already expended 10 cards, so it's good to me in that regard. Cloud, backup. When Cloud enters the field, you may pay 1 Earth CP and then 2 of whatever. When you do so, choose 1 duel forward, break it, and then his special Braver is discard a copy of himself, 1 Earth CP, and duel him, and then choose 1 duel forward, break it. So pretty much his own entry is his special without him being required for the special. So yeah, it's if you could bounce him and do it multiple times, I'd rather do that than pay another copy of Cloud to do that. But all things considered, that's pretty good, in my opinion. All right, Titan, 6k Brave. I'm sorry, 9k Brave. Titan cannot become dull by your opponent's summons or abilities. When Titan enters the field or when Hugo primes into Titan, choose 1 forward your opponent controls. If your opponent doesn't pay 3, deal 9,000. Oh man, I wish that was on attack as well. If that was on attack, that'd be so nasty. But I respect it because 3 is still a lot. If they have no backups up and they're frozen or whatever, that's a huge hindrance. But I like it. Cactite, full art. When one or more forwards you control attack, you may put Cactite into the break zone. When Cactite is put from the field into the break zone, choose 1 duel forward your opponent controls, break it. So yeah, I think all of these are just really setups for party attacks and Witch of the Fens, and I think they all have their place in whatever deck they decide to make their way into. Noctis is a 8k prince, went from a king to a prince again. When Noctis enters the field, choose 1 earth forward of cost 3 or less in the break zone, play it onto the field. But that effect is pretty good, because there are so many earth forwards that you would want to play that cost 3 or less. So yeah, that Noctis is pretty solid. Costs a lot, but he could potentially bring you a whole bunch of revenue. Bosch, full art. If you control 2 or more 12 category characters, the cost required to cast Bosch is reduced by 3, making him 2. At the beginning of the attack phase during each of your turns, select one of the following 2 actions. Until the end of the turn, all forwards you control gain 2k in Brave, making him an 11k Braver, and then remove or reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 category 12 among them to your hand, and put the rest into the break zone. I can see both of these abilities being used. He's a captain, so yeah, I think this card's pretty good, but there's very rare when there isn't a good Bosch card. Bungai, when he enters the field, draw a card. If you have 4 or more earth backups when he enters the field, and to the end of the turn, all forwards you control get 3k in Brave. So this is like another mod, LB mod. So it's pretty good. And then you can draw a card. So I think this is Hugh Yerg, Joker, or no, this is a Jack full art. When he enters the field, you may search for one Earth forward of cost 1 and play it onto the field. So this is like a Leo searcher. When the forward of cost 1 enters your field, choose one forward until the end of the turn. It gains 2k and Brave. Yeah, this is definitely like a Leo searcher, and he's pretty strong. So I like this card. I think it's gonna probably do some good numbers. And then the art for these are always nice. And it's a warrior. Oh my gosh, more Titus support. Hugo. He is an 8k dominant and only takes 1 to prime into Titan, so good for him. When Hugo enters the field, choose 1 for your opponent controls. If they don't pay 2, deal it 8k. Oh wow. Okay. So Hugo Titan combo is pretty solid. That's disgusting. I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, that's pretty good. Fenrir, full art. If you cast Fenrir, you may discard 1 card as an extra cost. Choose 1 for your opponent controls. If its cost equal to the cost of the card discarded by the extra cost, break it and draw 1 card. So Fenrir does nothing unless there is like an exact cost that you discard. But if you do, you get to draw a card afterward to pretty much replace Fenrir. So this is going to be super situational, but I like the art. I like the card. So White Monk. Oh, gangster. Put White Monk into the break zone. Choose 1 monster of cost 3 or less. Break it. You can only use this ability if a Earth forward entered the field this turn. Google. Strangers of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origins. He's a Moogle. What did I say? Google? Moogle. When a forward other than Moogle enters the field, activate Moogle. Dual Moogle, choose 1 forward. It gains 2k to the end of the turn. So this is just pretty much a buffer for whatever. Morse from Type 0 has Brave. When it enters the field or attacks, you may pay 1 Earth CP. When you do so, choose 1 forward your opponent controls. Morse and the chosen forward deal damage equal to their respective power to each other. At damage 3, he gets 1,000, and then at damage 5, he gets another 1,000, making him 10k. Yeah, that's pretty good, I guess. I mean, if you can give him first strike, that also helps, because if you can get the 9k, you can essentially 9k something, and then if they block, it's so 2 birds with 1 stone. He's a warrior, so yeah, kudos for the warriors, and kudos to Morse for being weird. Ishtola, it's an EX burst. When Ishtola enters the field, choose 1 forward other than her in the break zone, add it to your hand. So another Kusif, essentially. If there are 3 or more different elements among forwards you control, she gets 3k. I mean, if nothing else, she can be a Kusif on EX, or more fodder for S abilities, Ishtola, either now or down the line. Lightning. When lightning blocks or is blocked, choose 1 attacking or blocking for your opponent controls, remove it from the game, and return lightning to the hand. Pay 1 of any CP, reveal lightning from your hand, remove 1 card named lightning in the break zone from the game, play lightning onto the field, and you can only use this ability if she's in your hand. So you can, as long as you have the lightnings, as long as you have the CP, and as long as she doesn't get blown up, deal with an entire board of forwards. So she's like a walking Shantoto bouncer thing. This card is insane. And I'm sure this card is going to get heavily abused in whatever deck that she ends in. And the art's nice. You know, I'm a huge Lightning fan, so I'm gonna use it. Rugia, you can pay 1 CP of whatever, 1 crystal, to cast him. The warrior of the crystal forward you control gain a 1,000 in brave. So yeah, as long as you can build crystals, it seems like this deck would be pretty solid as far as the power and the resilience, because this with the other ones, they get brave, one dulls and freezes, one does 4k. So yeah. Oh, look at that, Leo, another 1 CP for Hugh to use. When Leo enters the field, you may duel 4 active characters you control. When you do so, choose 1 forward breaking. Okay. I mean, I could see how that's useful. I could I could see how that's useful. Yeah, that's fine. It probably won't happen all the time, but I'm sure that that's something that will get used. All right, this card, Valigaramanda, is a summon. And full art's pretty nice as well. Where's this from? 6. Choose 1 forward, dull it and freeze it. It loses 9k power until the end of the turn. Deal it 9k. Okay, so all right. Okay. I guess this is one of those things that deals with like soirees, where if it doesn't deal damage, it's not affected by, they don't lose anything or whatever. So this card is like, all right, if I'm gonna get you one way, I'm gonna get you another way. if you're not affected by damage, you still dull and frozen. So I like this card. I think this card's pretty good. Odin EX. Choose 1 for your opponent controls, break it. Remove as many cards from the top of your deck from the game as the CP required to cast the chosen forward. I mean, this is good if like you wait. Oh, okay, never mind. I mean, if you hit this off EX and you can afford to lose the cards, it's fine. But I don't see anybody just like hard casting this just to remove cards. Now, if it says you got rid of a card, like send something from your hand or something like that, you can get rid of a 1 CP and do it all day. But this takes a little more strategy than just popping the stuff just for the sake of popping it, because 3, 4, 5 cards off the top of your deck kind of hurts. But I mean, sometimes you have to do it. Guardian. When Guardian enters the field, draw 1 card. When Guardian enters the field, choose up to 2 forwards. If you control 4 or more lightning backups, dull them. Yeah, pretty standard. Juggler. Put Juggler into the break zone. Choose 1 forward that costs 2 or less. Break it. You can only use this if a lightning forward is in the field this turn. So this is in line with those other ones, and this is also kind of like a Kuja. The Emperor, which is the pre-release kit card. When the Emperor enters the field, gain a crystal. If your opponent has a crystal, also gain a crystal. Pay 1 crystal and dull the Emperor. Choose 1 forward that costs 4 or less. Break it. Pay 3 crystals and dull Emperor. Break all forwards and monsters your opponent controls. It's lightning. There's the Goblin. There's Quarrel. There's Elias. If you're doing fire lightning, there's so many ways to get this guy haste, and with all this crystal generator in the game now, I can see this card just being insane. Just about the fact that if you have like 3 or more crystals, you get 1 on entry, and even if they Amaterasu you can use something, give him haste, pay those 3 crystals that you already have, and then wipe the field. If you're gonna lose them anyway, you might as well use them before you lose them. But I noticed they didn't make him a Final Fantasy II character as well, just based off of Minwu that we read earlier. So yeah, I like this card, and I think this card is going to be really good as long as you can generate those crystals. Sid Office. Sid if you're nasty. It takes 1 lightning CP and then 2 of anything else to prime into remove. and he is our first EX dominant. When he enters the field, you may search for one lightning summon and add it to your hand. I like that. That's pretty cool. I like that. Jack Garland. Wait, what was his attack stats? Ugh. 3 CP, 5,000. Jack Garland. Jack Garland is also Garland in all situations. The forward's opponent controls must attack once per turn if possible. The forward's opponent controls must block if possible. When a character your opponent controls is put from the field to the break zone, gain a crystal. I'm sorry, I blanked out for whatever reason. So this is good as long as you can keep him alive. The only auto ability he has is the gaining of crystal. So if you can keep him alive for that, and you have something that's strong enough to go against the whole field of whatever that they have, then this card is going to be pretty good. But if not, then obviously you're going to have problems. But he does have 9k, so that does help a little bit, and I think he's pretty good. This card is super cool, super nice, super beautiful. It's Chime. She's a forward with 5k, and when she enters the field, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add one character of cost 2 or less among them to your hand, and return the others to the bottom of your deck. I like this card. I know I'm gonna use this card, and I'm pretty sure other people will. But this is also a skill-based card because you have to know what's in your deck. You have to anticipate what number of cards are going to be seen at a given time. So even though she's a rare, I think she's really good, and that reverse art thing is I really like it. No, he is a full art. He's a Shadow Haunter, 13. He has haste, and he cannot be blocked. With that stat line, he should have just been a 2 cost, because 4 is way too much for him to do nothing else. But the art's nice, I guess. VV, 5k forward. When he enters the field, deal 2,000 to all damage forwards your opponent controls, and then you can duel him and then choose 1 damage forward, deal it 4k. I just see him being used as a fodder for the Black Waltzes. We have another Furion. This one's in Lightning. He is a 2 CP 8k. You can only pay with CP produced by Lightning backups to cast Furion. 2 Lightning CP until the end of the turn. He gets haste and first strike. Then his special drain is a copy of himself, 1 Lightning CP, and then 1 random CP. Choose 1 forward, break it, activate Furion. Furion can attack once more this turn. So this works just like the Ice Cisne 2 or 3 sets ago, except this one you actually have to pay a little bit more than the Cisne. But I like this card, and this card could potentially be a game ender. So yeah, I think it's good. I think it's pretty solid. I mean, he's susceptible to Cloud, but so are so many other things. Behemoth. When 1 or more forwards you control attack, you can put Behemoth into the break zone. When Behemoth is put from the field into the break zone, choose 1 forward you control. Until the end of the turn, it gains. If this forward deals damage to your opponent other than by its ability, the damage becomes 2. So for people like Furion that can attack twice or multiple times, Furion attacks 2, Furion attacks 4, Furion attacks 6. So this Behemoth is insane, is disgusting, and I'm sure it's gonna get used because adding more damage, insult to injury is, I mean, always fun unless it happens to you. All right, mid, a Machinus. I'm happy she got a card. Backup, pay 1 CP of any element, duel her, put her into the break zone, choose 1 forward of cost 4 less in your break zone, add it to your hand. If it is a card named Sidolphus, play it onto the field instead. You can only use this ability during your turn. That's pretty cool. Hopefully Sidolphus gets more cards. that that facilitate that. But this makes it to where you can get more lightning summons to your hand, because once he hits the field, you get to search for one. So this is pretty cool. Lightning, dang, 9k, 4 drop. You discard one card until the end of the turn. She gets 1,000 in haste. Of course she does. Why would she not? Cause it's lightning. Rain on. You can pay 2 CP of whatever element and 1 crystal. When he enters the field, and choose one warrior of the crystal forward other than Radon. It gains haste to the end of the turn. So if you noticed that each of these cards, pretty much it's X amount of CP and then 1 crystal minus whatever their cost is. I'm sure that these cards are gonna have some relevance at some point, but they had to introduce them first. So remove 5 CP, 9k. When he enters into the field or once it offers prompts into him, you may cast 1 summon of cost 5 or less from your hand without paying the cost. When you cast a lightning summon, choose 1 active forward your opponent controls, deal it 8,000 damage. This card is disgusting. This card's so good. This card is, because there's so many lightning forwards that let you do 2 different things, and then he lets you hit something else for 8k after that. I mean, you could go and play that Vala whatever, the one that Dolan freezes something. Yeah, that's a good card. That's an insanely good card. Ramza, 7k forward. When Ramza is put from the field into the break zone, gain a crystal. Remove 2 cards in the break zone from the game. Ramza gains 1,000 to the end of the turn. It's okay. It's a crystal generator. So, Leon, another warrior. 1 drop, 9 CP. 9k power. When Leon enters the field, choose 1 damage forward. Deal it for 4,000 damage. When Leon is chosen by your opponent's abilities, your opponent gains control of Leon. At the end of your turns, if you control 1 or less job rebels, Leon deals you opponent damage. I got you. Okay. So they try to do something to him. He goes over there. And then if you control 1 or less, okay, so the goal is to give him to your opponent. They take the damage, and then you just keep it over there, so they essentially kill themselves. Okay, that's not as bad as I thought it was at first. At first I was finna be like, if you have, Austrius, it's a water legend. Will Weaver. If you have a total of 7 or more category FFBE cards in your break zone, and or category FFBE cards are removed from the game, you can cast him for free. When he attacks, select 1 of the 2 following actions. Choose 1 forward, it loses 7k power, or he deals 1 point of damage to your opponent. I mean, that's pretty good, especially if you can play him for free. That's insane. Water does not need any more help with anything like this, and you don't even have to play this in water, because if you just have 7 FFBE cards removed or in the break zone, he's free. All right, that's pretty solid. Gal, if you control 3 or more monsters, the cost required to cast Gal is reduced by 2, so he's free essentially. And then you can pay X amount of whatever Duel him, put him into the break zone, search for one card named Gal up to X that you paid, and one monster up to X. And play Gal onto the field and add that monster to your hand. That's pretty good. Especially with him being a backup, and that full art's pretty nice. Yeah, that's solid. That's real solid. Kimari Ronsu. Kamari is a 8K forward with back attack. In water. If a category 10 forward you control other than Kamari is dealt damage, reduce the damage by 2K. When Kamari enters the field, Kamari gains. If a forward you control other than Kamari is dealt damage, reduce the damage by 2K instead. This is pretty good, especially because with 10 you can use Riku. As long as Riku's in the deck, you can use Riku to pay for any element of 10 characters, and he is the true definition of a guardian. So pretty much it makes it to they lose 4,000 less the turn he comes into the field. So yeah, I like it. That's pretty solid. Corsair. When he enters the field, draw a card. When he enters the field, choose one forward in your break zone. If you have 4 water backups or more, put it at the bottom of the deck. Yeah, that's pretty solid. I like that. Jet. 9K. When Jet enters the field, choose one for your opponent controls. Return it to its owner's hand. When a character your opponent controls is returned from the field to its owner's hand, choose one for your opponent controls. It loses 3K power until the end of the turn. Okay. Not bad. Not overly powered. Balanced as all things should be. Jed, full art. If you have a crystal, he gains 1,000 in Brave, making him 9. When Jet attacks, you may pay a crystal. If you do so, draw a card. So draw power, Brave, not too bad. He is a samurai. Stilt skin, full art, forward 3K. When Stilt skin enters the field, choose one job Moogle forward of 2 or less in your break zone. Play it onto the field. Duel 2 active Moogle jobs, choose one for it, loses 2K until the end of the turn. I mean, there's better things that you could do, but if you want to build a Moogle deck, you could do that and essentially power drain forwards almost free. So I like it. It's nice. Strago, full art, blue mage, backup. When Strago enters the field, choose one card in your damage zone, add it to your hand. Put one card from your hand into the damage zone. Its EX burst will not trigger. When a card is put into your damage zone, your opponent selects one forward they control, put it into the break zone. This effect will trigger only during your turn and only once per turn. I mean, this works as well if you like put something in your damage zone for like Bosch or Ishtola or something like that. So this is good. It's probably not busted because you can only do it on your turn. Because if you could do it on both turns, then obviously they'd have to get rid of it before they attacked, or else they would like lose a forward. So yeah, 6 is just nuts. Siren, this is a very pretty card. EX burst summon, choose one forward. During this turn, the next damage dealt to it becomes 0, and you draw a card. Yeah, pretty straightforward. I like that. Cecil, backup, dull it, put it into the break zone, choose one forward. During this turn, the next damage dealt to it becomes 0 instead. 2 water CP, 3 of any other. Duel it. Put Cecil into the break zone. Choose 1 forward. Put it into the break zone. Pretty standard. Titus. EX. When Titus enters the field, choose 1 forward of cost 4 or less your opponent controls. Return it to their hand. When a character your opponent controls is returned from the field to the hand, draw 1 card. This effect only triggers once per turn. Yeah, that's pretty solid as well. Perine. She's pretty. Pay 1 CP and then 1 crystal. When a warrior of the crystal you control is put from the field to the break zone, gain a crystal. So this is their crystal gainer. At least they all have a solid stat line. Moogle. FFTA, he's a standard unit and not a Moogle. Put this card into the break zone. Choose 1 forward of cost 4 or less your opponent controls. Return it to the owner's hand. You can only use this ability if a water forward entered the field this turn. This is probably the best one of those, because these are 2. Yeah, this one's solid. This was solid for real. Ooh. Mog 6 has a full art. This is also the art of the sleeves from the pre-release kit. Forward for 5k. For each job Moogle other than Mog 6 you control, Mog gains 1,000. When Mog is put from the field into the break zone, you may discard 1 card. You may discard 1 job Moogle. When you do so, play Mog 6 from the break zone onto the field. So this is a loopable Mog, and it is also a Moogle / warrior, so he can essentially replace itself. Marlboro from Strangers of Paradise. When 1 or more forwards you control attacks, put it into the break zone. When Marlboro is put from the field to the break zone until the end of the turn, all forwards your opponent controls lose all their abilities and 3,000 power. Sounds about right, because they can't see. That's bad breath. Silence. Leviathan. If you cast Leviathan, you may remove 4 card named Leviathan in your break zone from the game as an extra cost. Your opponent selects 1 forward or monster they control, put it into the break zone. If you paid the extra cost, your opponent selects up to 2 forwards and monsters they control, put it into the break zone. Pretty solid. Just makes it to where you'd have to run a whole bunch of Leviathan, so you'd have to have the Leviathan deck. But this art is insane, so if nothing else, you got it for the art. Realm. When Realm enters the field, if you control 5 or more category 6 characters, you may search for 1 monster of cost 3 or less, play it onto the field. Duel her, choose 1 monster that is also a forward. It gains 2k power to the end of the turn. So cards like this just solidify monsters for the long run. So I don't dislike cards like this, but definitely get your play set. If you want full arts, get them. If you want foils, get them, because stuff like this, Realm just always goes up. So just make sure you get your copies. Waka. For each category 10 character other than Waka you control, Waka gains 1,000 power. When Waka enters the field, choose 1 for your opponent controls. If its power is equal to or less than Waka's power, put it on the top of its owner's deck. In element reels, you discard a copy of Waka, choose 1 forward that loses 5k to the end of the turn. So the starter deck Waka is a little more powerful than this one, but it's weaker. But this one is kind of like Waka and that Riku combined into one. So more 10 support's always welcomed, so definitely no complaints here whatsoever. Dion takes 3 of any element to prime into Bahamut. When Dion or a character you control is priming, draw 1 card. So he will be your draw engine for the primers. Bahamut, it has Brave. Dion has Brave as well. When Dion primes into Bahamut, choose up to 2 forwards, deal them 9k, and then Zeta Flare is the special by pitching Bahamut or Dion if Bahamut's been primed. Choose 1/4. It loses all its abilities until the end of the turn. Break it. Bahamut's pretty strong. I think all these icons are strong in their own right, and I think there's just going to be more powerful versions of these icons, and there'll be less powerful versions, so you're not just stuck to one. But outside of that, this one's a 4. It doesn't do anything if you don't prime, unless you're going to use Zeta Flare, but it is a 4 10k, so I mean, and it's got Brave, so if nothing else, you got that going on for you. So I think Bahamut and Dion are pretty solid. Lucio is a warrior of the Kindle Light, and not Crystal, which is interesting. 8k forward. When Lucio enters the field, you may search for 2 job warrior of the crystals of different elements, add them to your hand. At the beginning of your attack phase during each of your turns, Lucio gains 2,000 power until the end of the turn, and then you also gain 2 crystals. Scintillating Edge is the special. 1 copy of Lucio and 1 element of whatever CP. Choose 1/4, remove it from the game. Okay. So he is a crystal generator and also a remover and a summoner of the crystal people. He's pretty good. If he was 1 CP less, I think he'd be a little overpowered, but all in all, I think he is a pretty solid card. Odin has haste and first strike. When Barnabas primed into Odin, Odin gains. When Odin attacks, activate Odin, and Odin can attack twice in the same turn. These are permanent. Iron Flash, Barnabas if he's primed, and Odin either way, activate Odin. Odin can attack once more this turn. So Odin is good regardless if you prime into him or not. But if you do prime into him, every time he attacks, he essentially he doesn't get brave, but that's essentially what it's saying, that he attacks, activate him. He attacks, activate him. He attacks, activate him. So he'll theoretically never be dulled, but unless it gets like Kukulane or whatever. But yeah, Odin is Odin's probably the most powerful icon as of now. Barnabas, when he enters the field or a character, when Barnabas or a character you control is priming, choose 1/4 your opponent controls, it loses 8k power to the end of the turn. And now knowing that Torgal lets you use they can use any element to do this, this just makes Barnabas that much more powerful. As well as him only taking 2 to prime into Odin. So I think Barnabas and Odin win dominant and icon of the set for sure. Wrath, when Wrath enters the field, choose 1/4 your opponent controls until the end of the turn. It loses 4k for each crystal you have, and then you can pay a crystal to make it to where she can't be targeted by summons or abilities. So yeah, she's solid. I like that. I like that a lot. That card. Oh, she's a warrior of the crystal. That's why. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. Yeah, that card's great. Tenzin. Now we're getting into the LBs. Limit break 3. Brave. When Tenzin enters the field until the end of the turn, all job samurai forwards and all card names samurais you control gain 3k brave, and this 4 can attack twice in the same turn. So yeah, going back to that Scion we talked about. Snow. Limit break 2. When Snow enters the field, you can search for Lightning or Sarah, add it to your hand. Zidane. Limit break 1, 4 cost, 5k attack. Zidane cannot be blocked by 4 or 4 more. When Zidane enters the field, your opponent puts the top 2 cards of their deck into the break zone. If both cards are the same element, draw a card. This man, oh my gosh, this is Zidane so good. Not only do you get knowledge, but they don't get to draw anything this time. He can't be blocked. And if they get rid of them, you just play another one. And if they're the same element, I'm gonna draw a card. So that card that you would have drawn from the other effect of the wind, fire one, I'm drawing off of this. This the name is it's definitely gonna be in every wind deck from now on. Square-Enix, limit break 1. If this card is dealt damage by your opponent's summons or abilities, the damage becomes 0 instead. Cannot be broken by opposing summons or abilities that don't deal damage. Oh. So you have to break this or beat it in battle. If you can get this thing brave, that's pretty solid. Oh, Gilgamesh, limit break 1, 4-drop, 7k. When Gilgamesh enters the field, select one of the 2 following actions. Choose a forward to cost 1, break it. Choose 2 cards in your break zone, in your opponent's break zone, remove him from the game. He's a warrior as well, so obviously it's 9 times out of 10 gonna be remove him. But I thought he would do something with crystals. I mean, I can see where it could be useful. I just gotta plan some things out first before I know for a fact. Warrior of Light, you must control 3 or more standard unit forwards and or Warrior of Light forwards to cast Warrior of Light. The forwards other than Warrior of Light gain. This forward cannot be chosen by your opponent's abilities, and if this forward is dealt damage by your opponent's abilities, the damage becomes 0. So, okay, chosen. All right, cool. Yeah, this is good. This is a really good card. But Cloud blows him up, so you have to figure out a way to protect him. Iron Giant, limit break 2, ice, fire. When Iron Giant enters the field, select one of the 2 following actions. Choose 1 forward to cost 2, deal it 5. Choose 1 dull forward, deal it 7. Probably be the dull forward that gets hit the most. Because most 2-drops have more than 5k now. So yeah. That's a hero? Ooh. Magna Rotor. Ice Wind. Limit break 2. When this enters the field, if you control 4 more ice characters, your opponent reveals their hand, select 1 card from it, your opponent discards this card. If you have 4 more wind characters, Magna Rotor gains haste until the end of the turn. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about these limit breaks being all this high and costing so much and not doing a lot. But I mean, I guess if nothing else, you have room to get rid of them for something else. Vajrahara Wu. When Vajrahara Wu enters the field, select one of the 2 following actions. Choose 1 damage forward, break it. Choose 1 for your opponent controls. That card and this card deal damage of their power to each other. So this is pretty much knock this in the limit break from the deck. So this will probably get played in that 15 deck because it does it twice. Noctis does it and then this does it. So I respect this one. The Dragon King. This one I do not. When Dragon King enters the field, choose up to 2 characters in the break zone. If you control 4 more Earth characters, add them to your hand. And then if you have 4 more Lightning characters, you can choose 1 forward and break it. That's just too much, man. 9 and 9. There's got to be a way to reduce that cost because 9 is just insane. Tom Berry and Cactuar. Limit Break 2. When Tombe and Cactuar enter the field, select one of the 2 following actions. Choose one active forward of cost 3 or less. Break it. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, add one of them to your hand, and then return the other to the bottom. So both of these effects are pretty solid. And it doesn't cost a lot. And then water and lightning are already a combination that is highly well respected and feared. Plus that's where lightning resides in the water version. So, and I guess the lightning as well. So yeah, I really like this, and that art coming from the manga is pretty solid as well. And the last card is Ultima Weapon. Fire Water, 6 drop, 9k, 10 is a weapon. When Ultima Weapon enters the field, choose one forward. If you control 4 more fire characters, deal it 9. And then if you control 4 more water characters, your opponent selects one forward they control, put it into the break zone. So this is good with what's the card that uses Yuzuki? I think her name is Yuzuki, the deck. Yeah, so any if you can get this to work, it's pretty good. But these multi-element being so high, it's just I don't know how I feel about these in general. It just seems like a lot to commit to. But anyway, this has been my opinions, my thoughts on Opus 24 Hidden Legends. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again for Tears of the Planet in March. Peace. Have a great day.